Good evening, everyone. My name is Rohit from Team Turito. Hope you're all doing good. Firstly, let me extend my warm welcome to all of you. We are glad to have you all in the webinar today. How to wow admission staff with your extracurriculars. Turito is a global edtech platform with presence in geographies like US, Canada, UK, Australia, Singapore, and Middle East. Turito is a trusted platform by 10,000 plus parents and offers services in three verticals: test preps with our flagship offering, which is Foundation Program; Turito for lower grades with math, science, English, robotics, and coding; college application counseling. Today, we are here to discuss on how to work college admission staff with your extracurriculars. We have Lindsay from our college counseling team. Lindsay has more than 5 years of experience and counseled about 100 students. Her students got admissions in top colleges like Open, Duke, Stanford, Dartmouth, Cornell, Yale, and UCLA. So from here on, Lindsay will take it up. And any queries, you're having on, you can just put it in the chat. Our team will give you the responses over there.
Yeah, I just realized actually I can't share my screen. Can you make me a co-host perhaps?
Yes.
So I can share my screen? Thank you. So my name is Lindsay, and I will talk a little bit more about how to impress college admissions officers with your extracurricular activities. Really excited to share some information and knowledge with you guys. If y'all have any questions along the way, I'm more than happy to stop and answer them, but we'll kind of go over a wide variety of different things throughout the next hour or so. But a little bit more about us is already kind of explained. We work one-on-one with students throughout this whole process and really focus on making sure that we've got students from a wide variety of different backgrounds. And so a lot of our students are kind of focused on healthcare, business, engineering. So we'll cover a wide variety of different extracurriculars throughout the next hour. But as mentioned, my name is Lindsay. So I work as a college counselor virtually throughout the whole process and can really guide you throughout this whole journey from A to Z, from picking a college major, helping build the resume, everything like that, summer research opportunities, everything kind of from A to Z, and making sure that you really spend a lot of time building up that profile. And so as I'll talk a lot about today, grades are important, SAT, ACT are still important, but what really matters a lot of the times is the resume. So that's what we'll talk a lot about today. But I've been doing this for, as mentioned, about 5 years now, and really love guiding students throughout this process. Now let's kind of get into the good stuff about, kind of why the resume really matters. So there was a lot of changes recently throughout the college admissions process. The first one being that there was, no longer any SAT essay or SAT subject tests. So that was a big change that kind of took away some of students' abilities to showcase some of their academic knowledge and, some information that to kind of showcase more about their abilities outside of the classroom, but still in the academic setting. A lot of schools also went test optional. Some of those policies are reverting back to requiring the SAT or ACT, but a lot of schools, including all the Ivies, still have those test optional policies, I believe through 2024, and then they're probably going to revisit and kind of see where they're at. The most maybe painful change was the increased applications. We've seen a lot of students who are applying to a lot more schools, a lot more applications per students. And so that just has made everything a lot more competitive too. So some information about the standardized testing trends. Last year, I think this was actually from the 2021 cycle, only 3% actually required the SAT out of this 400 school sample. A lot of them had a multi-year or a one-year trial, or even went test optional permanent. And so that's kind of the good thing though. If you're not a strong test taker, you don't have to submit. But that means that then we want to showcase other areas of your life that make you a strong candidate, because now they have one less thing to kind of compare you about to other students. So that's really why resume really matters. Some campuses even went test free. So that means they're not going to even look at your or your SAT or ACT, even if you took it. So those are kind of the important things to remember, is that some schools might not require it. Okay, I see we got our first question, which is, what does trial mean? That's a great question. So trial means that they were only trying it out for 1 year, which was this past cycle. That means they weren't sure how it was going to go. They weren't sure if, like, it would work well for their students, if they would get more applications, less applications, if the, applications would be less qualified overall. So they might, have been revisiting their policies again this year. And so likely, I mean, what I've seen from a lot of schools, I believe like Harvard and, those kind of places had a 1-year trial 2 years ago. And so they went through it, and now they've decided actually to extend their policies. So some of them decided to extend it to multiple years. Some have decided to go permanent with it, and some, may have regressed and gone back to their requiring the SAT or ACT. So it will vary from school to school. Let me answer the question. Okay. And as I mentioned before, increased applications was definitely more popular last year. We saw a huge increase in the number of applications submitted, 10% more Common App applications submitted. A lot of our top universities also saw a huge increase, 42% more at Harvard, 24% more at Boston. And so if we're having more applications and everyone's got great SAT, GPAs, once again, how do you stand out? Through resume building. So that's why building the resume really is important to stand out from the crowd ultimately. And so a lot of these schools and programs, they're accepting, 2,000, some programs. We work a lot with or at least I work a lot with direct medical students who are interested in applying directly to medical school out of high school. And so a lot of those programs have 10 seats or less. And so we're looking at really tough acceptance rates. And even the top universities, they're accepting at most, 3,500 or less. And so that is really tough whenever we see they're getting 30 to 40,000 applications. So once again, we want to stand out with our resume. Now, the good news is there really is no one right way to build a resume. And so a lot of students will ask us this question: do I need to do sports? That's a lot of times when I'm talking to a new student, they're like, I don't like sports, or, I do sports now, but I don't really want to continue. Is it worth the time I put into it? The answer is no, you don't need to do sports. You can do sports if you enjoy doing it, but there's, a lot of great students have no sports on their resume, and a lot of great students do have sports on their resume. Really, at the end of the day, what you want to think about is like, what does being on a sports team ultimately say about you? Like, what kind of qualities are you gaining from it? You might be gaining things like, teamwork skills, or how to take feedback, how to lose, how to persevere. You can get that like on a robotics team, for example. You might be spending a lot of time on a team, working together, maybe failing, but persevering. Those exact same qualities and skills can be learned in other areas if you're just not into sports. So sports are definitely not something that you need to have, but you can have. Something else that we get asked quite a bit is, sometimes kids have to work, they work to support their families or during their summers. I had one girl who would spend every summer taking care of her grandmother. So of course she couldn't do like a more competitive, like summer research program where, you're going to a campus for 8 weeks, because she was, had to stay home and take care of her grandmother. That also won't be held against you. That's something that we can talk about in the Common App activity list and things like that. You can put down family obligations. Because once again, like if you're volunteering to take care of your grandmother, what kind of skills is that showing? That you're kind, you're empathetic, that you're learning how to connect with other people too. Same thing, maybe that volunteering somewhere else could potentially do too. So you want to think about skills ultimately that you're gaining here. Now, another type of question we get asked a lot is, what type of activities are best? And the good / bad answer is, there's not one type of activity that is best. You do want to, there's kind of two schools of thoughts, that sometimes kids want to be well-rounded and have a lot of different abilities, a lot of different activities, maybe volunteering in a hospital. They're also doing robotics, playing tennis. They're doing a lot of different things. Other kids will be more pointed, really a lot of their activities are under, one specific kind of area. So for example, I had one girl whose brother had a severe autism. And so she was really passionate about working with kids with autism. She had worked at a school that was, focused on both kids with disabilities and also, more neurotypical students as well. And so, working with them was kind of one thing that she did. She also worked and had started a nonprofit where she was tutoring kids who are neurodivergent in how to cook, how to, play tennis. She taught like a Taekwondo class that she customized to like their learning abilities too. She wrote a research paper about a particular like communication method that kids, that people with autism will use. That was a little bit controversial. All of her activities, or a lot of her activities, kind of were all to this one point, working with people with autism. And that's totally fine too. So there's like, a couple different ways you can go about doing it and building your resume. Now, one thing I'll also say is you don't need to be doing everything. We only have so many hours in the day. And if you're doing AP classes, just living a normal teen life, you want to make sure you do focus your energies on doing things deeply rather than a lot of things kind of on the surface level. I'd much rather see a student who's done 5 activities, but has maybe a leadership position in one of them, who's, done several things or had several years worth of experience doing an activity rather than doing 15 activities, but, maybe bouncing around quite a bit and not having any leadership ability, not doing anything deeply. Now, I don't want you to think that if you start an activity freshman year, that means you have to do it all 4 years. If you don't like something, let's drop it and we can find, make sure that we spend your time wisely, essentially. But if you do really like something, like let's concentrate on doing that deeply, essentially. Okay. So this is I'm going to pause and answer some questions as we go along. I see we got another one. Is joining a swim team helpful for someone who wants to be a pilot? Yeah, I mean, I think that could be really, really helpful as well, because once again, like you're showing dedication to something. And as a pilot, you have to put in a ton of hours of training. And on a swim team, you have to put in tons of hours of training too for that. So being on a swim team, especially if you like doing it, that could absolutely be great for someone who wants to be a pilot too, or really any field, because once again, we're showing dedication to doing that activity. So yeah, I say absolutely go for it. And you might want to do other activities too that maybe are more, aviation focused, but honestly, the swim team as well would be really great, especially if it's something you like to do. All right, and in the COVID era, a lot of people ask, are virtual activities okay? And sorry, didn't mean to do that. Oh, no, I was okay. Are virtual activities okay? And absolutely, in some places, like it's really hard to get in-person shadowing experiences or volunteering and things like that. Summer camps might have been virtual and you have no options. That's totally fine. And something I really do encourage that students, do if there's no other opportunities. So virtual activities are totally fine. I actually did an interview with an admissions officer or, program director at a university in Ohio. And, I've specifically asked them and other admissions officers too, how do you guys view virtual activities? They don't discriminate against it because ultimately we're in the COVID era and a lot of things went virtual and there's, nothing students can do. So they won't look down on you. I would say that we want to try and do things once again, kind of deeply, try and get involved as much as possible and not be passive in our engagement. Okay, I see we got a couple more questions. So this one's, my son took chess and swimming from kindergarten. Do they have to be excellent in that? No, so you don't have to be, and that's actually a really great segue into this one, which is do I need to be a leader in everything? in every class, in every club. No, I mean, if you're swimming and you're just on the swim team, if you're in any sport and on JV and then you're varsity like just 1 year, you never get to varsity, that's totally fine. You don't have to be winning state or anything like that. Once again, if it's something that brings you joy, you can totally stick with it and stay there too. Same thing with chess. Like, if it's something that you like doing, and you're just good at it, not great, that's okay. Because I'm sure there's something else in your life that you are really great at, and that's okay. We can't be great at everything. Next question. My son is doing Taekwondo since he was 8. He's a 2nd degree black belt. If he started doing, I'm guessing volunteering there, will it help in building his resume? Yeah. And so that's like something that really segues actually really nicely to my next point about how many activities should I do. And so a lot of the times, like I was talking about before with that one girl who had a lot of activities that were related to autism, sometimes it can be really great to do a lot of activities within one. So if he is a black belt, has been taking lessons since he was a kid, and then decides to also start teaching classes, that's fantastic. That's kind of the ideal at the end of the day. Where he's building on one activity, gaining leadership, building, excelling. It's like if you're moving from JV to varsity, maybe even to captain later on. So that's kind of the goal, is to do that type of thing too. So yeah, I would say it would be a great idea to move forward, because at the end of the day, we only have so many times for activities. And so by doing multiple, we can multiple activities within really one activity. It can be really nice, and showing leadership in those too. Another question, my son also learned 3D printing via Google, which he sells to the neighbors around. Do you think if you built a website, it will help him? Yeah, I mean, I think that could be cool too, because once again, we're gaining skills. He's learning how to build a website. He's going to be impacting more people. So that's just essentially how to take what he's doing to the next level. And so that's whenever we're thinking about how many activities should I do, not how many more activities I can do, but how can I take what I'm doing to the next level? So next, could he start a YouTube channel on how other people could be doing this as well? Could he be, donating this money to a cause that he's really passionate about? Could he be teaching other people how to do this? Thinking about what we could be doing to take it to the next level, essentially. That's kind of the ideal for how to handle these activities. Okay. So to kind of answer this question too, do I need to be a leader in every club? No, because one, being a leader does take a lot of time. You can't be president of everything because one, it's impossible. It's just a lot of clubs that you'll have to be doing. And, it's really not necessary. I'd rather see you, once again, concentrate your energy on a few things and do those deeply than be surface level. When I see a kid who's been president and founded 8 clubs and varsity and captain, it makes me wonder how much time they're actually devoting to these things. And some kids are absolute superheroes, but still at the end of the day, I wonder, what could you really be doing? And how deeply can you be doing it too? Okay, I see one more question about swimming. So my daughter has been in swim team for 10 years and now started working to teach swim lessons in the summer swim league. She's now taking 5 APs for junior year. We'll have to prioritize school over year-round swim. Will it hurt her to stop swimming during the school year? No. So there is sacrifices that have to be made. And so she keeps doing, some kind of swimming because she's obviously probably likes it if she's been doing it for 10 years. It's totally fine if you stop. Once again, we only have so many hours in the day. We have to choose wisely. And so if it's just something that you just can't do all 4 years, it's okay. Do kids have to continue sports all 4 years? If so, how does it help? If not, does this affect? I mean, the short answer is no, of course, you don't have to do it all 4 years. Once again, I kind of encourage students to kind of follow the Marie Kondo technique, where it's does this activity still bring you joy? If it does, then we keep it. If not, then we think it's for a service and get rid of it. So ultimately, doing it all 4 years does show good dedication. It shows that you're committed to a sport and you're likely moving forward in that sport too. If you just don't have the time, because you're doing other things. Like maybe you started doing a really intensive research project. Maybe you started, a job or a nonprofit tutoring and you have to drop something. So I wouldn't just drop it just because to drop it. Like students aren't going to be studying every single day, all day. So there is like other time for activities, but as long as they're managing their time and they're not being overwhelmed, then we can keep doing it. But if there just isn't the time of the day, then it's okay to get rid of some activities. As long as you're showing dedication in other areas too, and we're not dropping everything come junior, senior year when the classes really start to pick up. Okay. So kind of the next question, and a little bit of what I've talked about too is next kind of slide is how to boost your resume. So what I really do recommend is that you continue to take your current activities to another level. So the Taekwondo question was a great example. They've been doing Taekwondo for years, and now they're going to start teaching. And that's essentially what we want to do. We want to think about how can we gain some leadership? How can we continue learning? Same thing with 3D printing. Now we're going to add a website. How can we take things to the next level? Another great way that we can boost the resume is to, find an internship. And this could be virtual, it could be remote, virtual or in person. I've had kids do both. That can be a really great way to show some initiative to, and to get some like career focused experiences as well. There's other ways you can get leadership positions or leadership skills, even if you don't, you're not in a club or you're not going to be able to get leadership through a club. You could be organizing a food drive or a fundraiser, that type of thing. That's a way to show leadership as well. And you can also even help local nonprofits. So for example, when I was in high school, I got an internship at a local nonprofit, helping them with writing blogs, helping them with social media posts, helping them organize. It was a big center where they did distribution of food to the elderly and to people with kids and things like that. And so that was a way for me to get some hands-on experience because I was interested in going into journalism. And so it all related to my future career. So that could definitely be something that you do too. And then, it's a way to be helping out my community too. So you could definitely look at nonprofits. They always need help. So there's a lot of opportunities you could do there. Another idea you could do is self-publish a book or start a website or a blog or something like that. So that could definitely be something you do as well. And once again, maybe it's related to your other activities. So going back to the 3D printing idea, maybe it's he publishes a guide on 3D printing, or even it could be talking about the history of 3D printing. It doesn't necessarily matter what it is, but publishing a book can be a really cool way to just add another layer to your activities. So for example, I had one student who did coding. He was really into coding, and he started a coding nonprofit. And so every a few times a year, he would hold coding boot camps for kids, specifically targeted in low income areas where they couldn't afford, coding classes essentially in their curriculum. And so that was one way that he really was passionate about and kind of showing his interests. But he also wrote a book where it was 5 coding projects you can do at home for free, essentially. And then he would give them to the kids at the end of the camp. So it's a way for him to be, to add a little bit more value to the camp as well. So that could be a way to continue to take things to the next level. Okay, so I see here we have another question, and this one's more about APs. So this school that he's going to be attending doesn't offer any PE classes except for 2 APs in computer science. How much does AP courses add to your college application over internship in the field? So in his case, like he won't be affected if he's taking advantage of the classes that are there. The schools will send, like your high school will send over like a school report, and they'll get to see how many AP classes were available at your school. So if you had 20 APs available and you only took 2, you would look a lot worse than the kid who took 2 AP classes, but they only had 2 available. So they're going to be definitely looking to make sure you do challenge yourself. You don't have to take every single AP class, like especially like the one, going back to the woman or the person who asked about her daughter who had swim, but 5 APs. Like, is it a good idea to take all those, to continue doing swim? We only have so many hours in the day. Once again, it's like my motto today. And if we have only so many hours in the day, we also only so many hours we can be studying. And so, for example, if you are interested in going into computer science, maybe it's better to target our energy on the computer science classes, if it is available, AP classes, versus like an AP US history, which is a really time consuming class, but might not affect your future career as much. So kind of targeting our APs that we take can be helpful. We still want to be taking a rigorous course load. They want to see you challenging yourself. So don't take that as like an excuse to like slack off and only take a few APs. You want to be challenging yourself, but just recognize we don't have to take every single AP class too. And I guess this one, let me further expand on this one too. How much does AP courses add to your college application over internship in the field? I mean, at the end of the day, it is a holistic process. They want to make sure you're challenging yourself to make sure that you are can handle like the rigor of school. An internship can be really great because then you get some hands-on experience and are really proving to them, especially if you are interested in a more competitive field like computer science, really interested in this field and can help you stand out from the other applicants. So both are important. But like in your case, because there's only 2 AP classes available, maybe it would be best to get that internship as well. Now, next question is, do you have to get a good score on an AP exam? A short answer is yes. They do want to see that you're challenging yourself, but also that, you also got that grade on the AP exam. You'll have to self-report your scores when you're applying to schools. And so you want to have at least a 3 or above to be able to report it. If you got a 2 or a 1 in a couple of them, it's not the end of the world, of course. But we do want to show that we not only got an A in the class, but we also got a good score on the exam. Okay, the next question is, for the person who asked about 2 APs, can they take AP classes outside of school through College Board? Yeah, you definitely could. You could also take classes at your local community college too, to show rigor and stuff like that. That can sometimes be effective as well. And that can be a good way to show rigor and take some interesting courses too through your community college. But you can also sign up for, AP exams. The only problem is you'll have to find a place that will seat you because sometimes it's a little bit tricky if your school doesn't offer the exams. On that day, they might not let you take classes or take those exams if your school doesn't offer them. So you might have to go to a nearby school. So that's just something to ask your counselor about too. Okay, next question. Does it make a difference on the resume if the child is educated in a private versus a public school? Does school rating make a difference? That's another great question. So I would say rating does tend to, just help because it's a little bit more rigorous then. But if it's kind of the same thing if you attend an Ivy League, but you do poorly versus if you attend a public school and you do really well, the one who did really well ultimately is going to be the one who stands out. I would say private versus public doesn't make too much of a difference at the end of the day. Both can be really great options. It definitely does kind of depend on the public school and the private school too. But I would say school rating does tend to help. A more rigorous school will show that you can handle more rigorous material, especially if you're doing really well. But also it's not a deal breaker if you don't have those options available, or if you just don't want to attend the high school, the private high school. It's not a big deal. Okay. So a couple different ways that we can get job experience, or sorry, a couple different ways that we can build up their resume is through job shadowing. And this can be a really great way too to help kids decide what career path is better than another career path too. Like some kids are really into wanting to become a doctor. And so maybe they do some virtual shadowing through web shadowers, or, actually shadow a physician or a dentist or whatever they might be interested in. The forage also can be a really great opportunity for kids to get some, preliminary experience in a particular field. They got a lot of different stuff, like more financial and things like that. So that can be a great way to get some first experience before, maybe pursuing an in-person job shadowing experience. Or you could also reach out to local companies too. And so I see that you're asking about what is Forage. So it's a website. So if you type in like www. I think it's just forage.com, you'll be able to log in and make an account and then kind of see the different kind of virtual job shadowing opportunities they have. They almost have like different classes that they'll offer. It's not live, it's asynchronous, and you can get some more information about particular career paths. And then kind of maybe if you have no clue at all, it can help you narrow down a little bit more too. Okay. I see a question. How are schools rated? So I'm assuming that's high schools. And it is based on like essentially the rigor and like the quality of the school too. I'm not exactly sure what goes into it, but usually it's ranked from state to state. And there's also national rankings. I'm unfortunately not exactly sure how things are ranked though. I'm gonna skip that one. So does doing college early help or extra credits in high school better for the application? I'm not sure I understand this question. Is that saying like taking extra APs? Maybe you can rephrase it a little bit for me. That question that one confuses me. But honestly, there's no one right or wrong way. Some kids do enrollment or like community college courses. Personally, I would rather see, you challenge yourself in the school, but then over the summers, rather than taking community college courses and that's all you do, get an internship, get something along those lines where you're getting hands-on experiences. You have all year to sit in a classroom. The summer is really the time to be attending like a competitive summer camp or things like that. Ultimately, I think that would be more useful way to spend the time than just worrying about making sure I've got all this rigor through my school. So it is a balance that we have to strike. Okay, I see someone's maybe typing on that one. So I'm gonna keep on moving. My 10-year-old is into the arts. How can it help in building a resume? That's a great question. So for example, I have one girl who I'm working with right now. She is really talented at art. And so she sells paintings on Etsy. And then all of the money that she sells goes to I think she makes like little art kits actually, and then gives them to hospitals for kids who are staying in the hospital. So you could like, sell the art and, for a cost, or you could be like starting a YouTube channel where you're teaching people art and grow that following that way, or you could be teaching lessons. You could be going to like a nursing home and, doing art with the residents or hospitals if they'll allow you, and doing art days like that. One of the nonprofits I volunteered at, or I got an internship at in college, that's one thing we did. We would host like art days with the kids. And so that could be something that you do as well. So this could be all kind of options too. Next question is about IB school. Yeah, I love IB schools. I think it's like nice, the pointed curriculum that you kind of follow. So if your school offers IB curriculum, go for it. It can be really nice kind of following that pathway rather than taking kind of the more, I see the advantage too of the APs because you can explore a little bit easier. But I think IB curriculum is great. Yeah, so I think it's this, I'm not positive. I see someone's asking about the job shadowing website name. I'm not positive exactly what it is, but I think it's that. If you type in the Forage, you should be able to find it though, and job shadowing. So next question is, oh, let me go to this one. My school does not have IB. What should I do? Then you take APs and it's not a big deal. Some schools don't have IB, so you just take AP and that's okay. Okay. So our high school offers to do senior and community college to get some community college credits. Is it better to do courses from community college than doing regular high school senior year? Yeah, that can totally work. I don't have a big opinion either way. I think I would need to learn more about the student. But I mean, honestly, if that's something that you'd like to do, and you can like take some more interesting courses, I think it's totally fine to do the community college courses on it for your senior year. But a lot of times that's not offered to kids, but I've had some kids who are able to get almost their associates before they graduate high school. And so they just save some time later on. So could be a good option. College is expensive. Okay, so next question is, how would I reach out to local companies to gain experience? So essentially what you would do is, just research some ones that might be interested to you and send an email, give them a call, stop in, and that type of thing. So, you want to explain who you are and what value ultimately you would add to the company. So you wouldn't just say like, I wouldn't say like, hi, my name is Lindsay, I'm a senior in high school or whatever. I'd like to job shadow with you, and that's it. I'd explain a little bit more about my goals, explain a little bit more about, what I like to do and things like that. And then that can be a really great way of reaching out, but you want to show a little bit about more who you are. And you also have to be flexible. So like, for example, if you reach out to a local company and they're, let's just say like a consulting company, and you say like, I can't come in, but I can come in at 6 o'clock on, Tuesdays and on Saturdays. If it's a consulting firm, they're probably working 9 to 5. So you have to be flexible. So it might not be something you can do during the school year. You have to kind of work on their schedule too. So that's kind of an important thing to remember whenever you're reaching out to these companies for job shadowing or research and internship opportunities, to work on their schedule too. It might be hard to find something, and you'll probably have to follow up a couple times, but persistence does tend to help, or reaching out to your network of who your family knows and friends know and things like that too can help. Oh, and I see someone actually did find the correct name. Yes, it is Forage, with the Forage on there. Okay. I don't understand the next question too. How can we find the requirement for the course we are targeting for a particular college? I would say you probably want to reach out to them directly. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by this computer science program. I'm assuming that's just for the university. I would reach out to them directly and attend either a virtual event or, email their admissions officers or their like computer science program directly. That'd probably be the best way to get the information you're looking for too. All right. So we talked quite a bit about summer program activities too. So this can be a really great way for students to gain experience in communication and critical thinking skills. It's a lot of times a great way for them to get some hands-on opportunities too. Like I mentioned before, we don't necessarily just want to be taking classes. We want to be demonstrating our skills and things like that too. And so the nice thing about this too is we can demonstrate a commitment to a field of study. So whenever we have to write those essays about why we're interested in a particular major, this can be really helpful. There's also programs literally available on any topic of your choosing, from writing to medicine to art to honestly anything. Like the world is your oyster when it comes to summer programs. And so this can be a really cool way for you to explore your interests. There's also a lot of pre-college programs at specific universities. If you want to see what it's like at Brown and things like that, you can attend some of these specific pre-college programs. One thing I will say about this is we definitely want to look at and do some research into the program before we just blindly, pay for a program. More money doesn't always equal a better program. And there are some competitive summer programs that are free. But most importantly, even if it is a paid program, we want to consider what you'll gain. If you'll be awarded college credit or maybe a chance of publication, that means it's like more worthwhile in the cost ultimately. A lot of the summer program applications actually open up in like the late midwinter, January, February or so, and like those will be their deadlines. And, we want to make sure that we're looking for the colleges and applying for that. And that's something that we help our students with quite a bit too, is ultimately making sure that we're finding them a competitive summer program and helping them through that, that process. Okay, so let's answer a couple questions. My kid wants to do medicine till now, no volunteer hours. He's in 9th grade now. That's okay. They don't care what happened in middle school. How many volunteer hours he has to gain total in 4 years? Does volunteer hours related to medicine or any type? So we want to have like a variety. You probably will want to volunteer in a hospital or a nursing home or hospice or something along those lines. But if also, you're getting, volunteering at a homeless shelter or, tutoring kids or whatever it might be, that's totally valuable too. There's no specific number you have to obtain. I would say consistency matters more. So that's kind of value. You don't want to just do things for, honestly, 16 hours would not be enough. You probably would be getting in the 100+ hours over the 4 years easily. But yeah, there's no like one specific number you have to take. Next question, is taking world language in school counted as an extracurricular activity? No, unless you're doing something with it. Like if you join the Spanish club, then yes. Because like if you think about it, taking biology in school doesn't count as an extracurricular activity. A lot of schools require that you take or recommend that you take 2 years of a world language, and a lot of schools, like high schools, you have to take it to graduate too. But unless you're doing something with it outside of school, it doesn't count as an extracurricular activity. And next question is, does taking the PSAT in 9th grade helpful for college applications? No, it's not unhelpful. It's more of a good indication of you'll have to take it, but they won't look at those scores. They won't really look at any of your PSAT scores. The only ones that we really look at is our 11th grade one, because that one is the one that we can qualify for the national merit semifinalist or finalist kind of status. So other than that, it doesn't necessarily matter too much, but it is usually required for the schools, and how we can get accepted ultimately too. But yeah, you'll likely have to do it. And it's ultimately like a good indicator too of how you'll perform, like how good of a test taker you are, but doesn't necessarily, matter too much. Now, one research program that I wanted to point out to y'all is called Rising Researchers. They have a summer program that's 4 weeks, and then they have a winter program that's 8 weeks. And that can be a really good option for students too. And so students through this program, it's kind of a good example of a program that you want to look for. They get college credit through UMass. They also learn how to do research. They write a research paper that gets published. And so that's kind of what we're looking for, where they're actually learning how to do things. They're not just passively sitting by and learning in the class. I see a follow-up question to the thing. I thought PSAT offers scholarships if you get good grades. Yes, as I mentioned, the 11th grade one does, but not 9th and 10th. 11th grade, that's how you qualify for the national merit semifinalists and finalists, which is the scholarships, where you can get a half ride, you can get a full ride, you can get $5,000 to schools, but they don't look at 9th or 10th. It's the 11th grade one that matters. Okay, so we're zooming through this. All right, so the next kind of thing we'll talk about is just like an example of an idea that you can do is an independent research project. And for this one, you could be working on your own and researching a particular subject. So I've had kids do it on lead poisoning. I have one kid who wants to be a dentist, so he's doing his on dental fear and how it's relating to how smoking increases dental fear. Doing it, one kid who's really into weightlifting, so he's doing on how like consuming protein before working out affects your muscle growth and things like that. So the goal might be to get, published in a scientific journal. And then you can highlight that in your, in the future as well. So that could be definitely something that you think about, and could do if you're really interested in bio or really any field at all. And so a good way that you can kind of, as I mentioned before, always try and take your activities to the next level too, is through is to think about how we can add another layer to your activity. So for example, I had like one girl who was really into or not really into lead. She had got lead poisoning, and had come up with kind of like a homeopathic cure. And her and her mom had come up with a homeopathic cure. So she did hers on, why this cure worked and what lead poisoning is essentially. And so that was kind of the first step. And she did get it published. And I see someone asked, will I be able to get published in a scientific journal? I thought only scientists could do that. There are some that are focused specifically on high schoolers, actually high schoolers, and there's also college ones, but there's a lot of high schooler ones out there. And so that could be something that you pursue and look into. There's not a ton out there, but there are quite a few journals out there where you could get published while you're still in high school ultimately. And so that could be something you think about if you are interested in going into medicine, you're interested in going to really, like I mentioned before, any field, you could get published because it's a way to show deep interest in something. But yeah, so this girl got her research published in a journal. But because I forgot to mention this, but whenever she got her lead poisoning, what part of her like research paper was on like what caused this lead poisoning. And it was actually from like a commonly used spice. And she did her research paper on that, the cure, got it published. But because it was a commonly used spice, we kind of thought about how can we show more impact? How can we help others with this, this knowledge we have now? And so like at her next community event, she did a poster presentation spreading awareness about lead poisoning symptoms. And like, if you use this brand of this spice and you have these symptoms, maybe you should go to your doctor and see if you have lead poisoning. So it turns out like 3 other kids in her neighborhood also had lead poisoning. Impact got a little bit bigger. Then what she did next actually was she created an app and entered into Lenovo's app contest they have each year, and actually won like first prize in like the health sciences category. Once again, kind of spreading awareness about lead poisoning, what to look out for, what symptoms to look out for, like, how you could potentially get better. Impact got exponentially bigger. And so that's kind of the goal for these types of projects, is to think about how we can have impact on others, how we can see some change in our community too, maybe spot a problem. And so there's a lot of different ways you can take, really any interest you have to the next level. You could get published, you could self-publish a book, as I've talked about before, on Kindle or Amazon. We've had kids start podcasts or run like an informational campaign on social media. And kind of through that too, launching a YouTube channel. I had one kid who, now I'm trying to remember, it was a year ago. I read so many essays on it. I can't remember now, but her and her group were, especially during COVID, and she was really into robotics. And I want to say that they were coming up with like a chair that could take your blood pressure, who could take your weight, all of those types of things, so that we could reduce like, contact during the pandemic. And so they were filing a patent and, trying to figure out how they could take a prototype. So whenever we were writing a lot of her college admissions essays, a lot of things she was looking for in her colleges was a place where she could potentially do more research, where she could get grants, take this idea and actually like make it a possibility. And so that really showed a lot of interest and a lot of depth in her experiences too. But that was quite intense, but otherwise you could also publish a blog on something that you're passionate about, or hold like a workshop or online course. So kind of going back to like the art or Taekwondo or like really any subject, you could hold a workshop or an online class on that too. So a lot of different opportunities that we could really see and, start to take ultimately to the next level too. Okay. So as I was talking about the lead poisoning girl, I was like, oh, I think I put her in my next slide actually, because she was very memorable. I use her all the time in kind of my examples. Because she really did a great job adding layers to her activities. But these are some of my other kind of favorite activities, ones that I just remember really well. This first student, he was from quite a few years ago now, but he actually started a nonprofit. What his kind of story was that he climbed all the time. And he realized that, these ropes are getting changed out. What happens to these ropes once they get, changed out? Do they get recycled? No, they actually just got like thrown away. And so he came up with this idea of turning these, climbing ropes that would have otherwise been thrown away into dog leashes actually. So he had this whole like business. He had multiple people helping him with it. Was making money and like donating it back to the local animal shelters. And so that's kind of a great idea that he came up with, because it combined his interests of climbing and also animals, and really showed a lot of skills at the end of the day. And so that's kind of the goal, is to like not just do things to do things, but to do things that you're, able to learn something new from, that you're going to take things to the next level, and, constantly be evolving as a student. And like, whenever we're applying to colleges, they're like, okay, we can picture who this person is going to be. They're a go-getter. They're someone who sees a problem and then solves it. And so that's kind of the ideal with a lot of these activities. Same thing with kind of the lead poisoning girl I was talking about before. Saw a problem that, maybe lead poisoning, I mean, who knows what those symptoms look like? So she was spreading awareness about it. So that's a really awesome cause that she came up with too. Now, I see, which school did these kids go to? Ooh, that's a really great question. The first one, I honestly can't remember. He was from about 4 years ago. And I can't remember where they actually ended up going. This second girl, she's at an Ivy League. And then this third girl, she's actually my student right now. So she's in progress. I really expect really great things from her. Student 3, I started working with her as a sophomore, and she had already done some really cool stuff. So she is really focused on anti-vaping, because whenever she was going through, and this is honestly a lot of what her personal statement's all about, because and student too, like that's a lot of what we wrote about. Her personal statement was about like this lead poisoning. But for student 3, same kind of thing. So she, when she was like a child, going through kind of like the DARE, drug and smoking kind of anti-drug and anti-smoking educational material, it wasn't super informative. It was like a older nurse who came in and just kind of gave a more cut and dry presentation that really didn't have an impact, a positive impact on the students. Didn't really have an impact at all, I guess I should say. But then as I got older, of course, like everyone knows, the vaping pandemic or epidemic that kind of has spread across schools and adults everywhere. And, because it thought it was safer. As we know, that's not necessarily the case. And so what she has done is focus a lot on, specifically anti-vaping, anti-tobacco work. And she's interviewed governors, she's written articles, she's on like teen advisory boards and things like that. She has really taken this interest and exploded with it. And her interests are very pointy towards this one specific thing. Almost all of her activities have something to do with this. She's done research on, tobacco smoking and how it affects the lungs, gotten published, done a lot of really cool stuff. This takes years though. Like this isn't just something you wake up your junior year and you can accomplish all this in 1 year. Unfortunately, you do have to start when you're young. This started really when she was in 7th, 8th grade and just built onward and onward and onward. The kid needs to be ultimately passionate about it. It can't be something that kind of arbitrarily gets assigned to them, because think about it. If she's spending, I don't even know how many hours each week, each day on this one thing, it has to be something she wants to be doing. Her parents can't force her to spend that much time doing it. And it is something she is really passionate about. So that's one thing I would say when you're thinking about kind of a deep project you want to do to stand out from the crowd. Think about things that you actually care about as a student, that you actually care about. And that's ultimately kind of like what we want to think about whenever we're making these like kind of passion project ideas, how we can turn what we really like doing into something more impactful. Okay, so I see a question. Do kids need to do volunteer work and publish their work in their own country, or can they visit developing countries to do it as well? I would say, I would recommend that you do some stateside as well. If everything is kind of more international, one, during the school year, you might not be able to do as much, potentially. But I have had kids who've done some really great stuff. So like, for example, I had one kid who was really focused on helping bring like running water to villages in India, whereas like family was originally from. And so that's a lot of what his volunteer work was, but he also volunteered at a hospital close by in like the States, and did some other things here. So I would suggest that you do some abroad is okay, but also we want to do some stateside too. Okay, I see. This is a great question. NSHSS, National Society of High School Scholars. We got a letter from sorry, I can never say these letters correct. NSHSSS, or too many S's, stating you've been selected for a membership in, that organization. Would like to get opinion if enrollment into this membership helps. To be honest, I also get those emails saying that I have been offered or selected for a membership in, the National Society for High School Scholars. I am clearly not in high school anymore. A lot of the times they're getting your information from maybe sites you signed up for, like honestly through like the College Board and things like that. If you like signed up or registered for a site there, I personally don't think it's worth it. You typically have to pay for that enrollment. There are some like leadership conventions you can attend and things like that. I personally don't think it's worth the time and the effort for it and the money for it. There's better uses of your time. So that's one organization I do not really particularly recommend. There's no real, it seems like discrimination that they give based on it. So yeah, I don't think it's necessarily worthwhile. Okay, so we've got a few minutes left, and that was actually my last slide. Does anyone else have any questions I can answer? One thing I will say is we don't necessarily, remember like what I said, we don't need 1,000 activities. We don't need 20 activities. Better to do things deeply and to do them really well and to add those layers, thinking about how we can always be taking things to the next level ultimately too. That's going to be the most important part of this process. And so, sorry, I'm just looking at the chat too. I see a lot of people are asking about the job shadowing site. I think that people got it though. It's www.theforage.com. If anyone else, like I said, has any other questions, just let me know. Otherwise, it was really great oh, here we go. I see them talking about pricing. I'll let someone else who's more qualified answer that question. The next one is, what's a good thing for a rising senior going towards medicine to do before application period? Whew, okay, so I would say at this point in the process, hopefully they've already started writing their essays. That would be the first thing I would say that a rising senior should be doing already, is starting on their Common App application and starting on their supplemental essays. It might seem early, but that would be the first step to do. Something else that they might want to do is, get some more like clinical exposure. If it's maybe job shadowing, it could be that virtual one I was talking about. It's called web shadowers. I'll type that in there. 1 second. Web shadowers. That could be something good. Maybe volunteering. Hospitals might be hard to get depending on your area, but a lot of times nursing homes can be really open to kids volunteering, or hospices. It's a little bit, tougher, but like emotionally, but it is a really good experience for students. I think that can be really great. I would say just try and get some volunteering would probably be a good idea. Okay, so if the kids start a YouTube channel and didn't get enough subscribers, is it worth it? Yeah, I think as long as you're still adding value, and I guess like it's a kind of an arbitrary number too. that would be a way to go about doing it too. So I would say, as long as you're consistent with it, it will start to go off. And I see one question about explain athletic scholarships in detail. Unfortunately, I don't usually work with college athletics, so I don't have a good answer for that one. All right, so I'm going to answer these last two questions, then I think they're going to pitch the program and kind of tell you a little bit more about the pricing. So I'm going to do these last two, and then I'll let you guys go, or let them talk a little bit. Or actually, no, sorry, I'm going to read this. They're going to talk a little bit, and then I'll continue the last little Q&A. So I'll let you guys take over. Whoever's going to be teaching, there we go.
Thank you, Lindsay, for your valuable time. You have been given good inputs for the students who are looking for extracurriculars and the students who are having their queries. So yeah, hi everyone. So this is Rohit. I'll be taking you through the foundation program. So a foundation program is basically designed, to help the students to enter into top 50 universities. So it's a customized program which we'll be taking on. So I'll give you a slide share where you can just go. Yeah. So Turito is basically, we have customized the program in such a way that all the required essentials for you to enter into top 50 universities will be provided in this foundation course. And yeah, so foundation courses basically, it gives on these are the four basic, major key points which we tell you that profile building, which is useful for you, to help you, to basically execute your tactical steps and differentiate yourself out of the entire profiles. So, and test preps, which include all the academics related to test preparation, as in SAT, ACT scores. And you basically have GPA boosters where you can, go through all the required, for suppose if you are, having a, lack in any of this particular concepts, you can just come down and go with the regular academics with GPA boosters. And yeah, college application counseling, where we take you and withhold you from the start till your college application process. This is where we go on. And yeah, so basically why foundation program, we have launched, and what we are majorly focused on is, so basically 40% of, the top admissions or IB admissions comes from these private schools. So we are currently, focusing on the public schools where the students are not able to afford this particular, program to take it forward. And, all the courses, especially the profile building, the GPA boosters and the test preps are not being covered. And there is no proper guidance given in this public school. So where we take this up, developing in all these particular four major sets of programs and help you out in, getting, we check on your efforts where you're lacking in, and exactly help you out in this particular program. So here, each and every school, for suppose if you take, there are certain schools here. So each and every school has their own requirement, especially in extracurriculars and academics. If you take, it's going to be on an average 50% of academics and 50% of extracurriculars will be taken on. So where we'll be focusing on where exactly you're lacking, and accordingly we'll provide you that particular suggestion and guidance to help you out and excel in that particular thing. So, and the extracurriculars, the guidance will be given on, and also in the college application process. That's where we go on. So every college, as I told you, that they have their own requirement. These are the attributes which they need. For suppose if you take Yale University, resource utilization is the main point which they focus on. So Harvard University, diverse interests and experience. These are the few points where especially they take it on. So these are the primary attributes, and also there are certain other attributes which are needed for the students to enhance and also, build up this particular, what you call, build up these particular aspects in you, so that these would be helpful for you in the college application process, and help you out in getting a good score, not getting a good guidance from our end especially. So as told for you, profile building activities, these are the 8 key major points where we'll be focusing on. So which differentiates in academics, extracurriculars, and also co-curricular activities. So we even in terms of assignments based and giving you special skills which are needed for this. And so why do we need to start it too early? Is anyhow we take it as learning early is better than taking it up late, because you have a lot of time where you can enhance yourself, so to develop your skills. Or maybe you have a lot of time where you can just go through from the start and check on where you're lacking, and build your profile accordingly. If for suppose if you're taking it at grade 10 or grade 11, it gives you a little time where you can't focus on major of the activities. So that's where you get a lag. So that's where you have that you don't have a plenty of time where you can explore all the activities which are required for you. This is where you lag on if you're taking it late. So so these are the GPA boosters which I have told you prior, that we'll be focusing on your academic guidance, both one-on-one and group classes, where our expert tutors will be dedicated in checking out where you are lacking on, and accordingly providing you the guidance and helping you out to excel in that particular concept. So test preparation courses, we actually work on all the test prep courses especially required for you for this top Ivy League colleges. So or maybe top 50 colleges which I told in global. So ACT, SAT, ACT, AP, and PSAT courses. So these are the courses which we basically take on, and all the required Olympiads which are required for you to have your skill growth, especially in all the extracurriculars, and also your profile building improvement. So from here on, I hope Vishwa will be taking it up in terms of explaining you all the packages, especially giving you more guidance in that.
Yeah. Hi everyone. So thanks, Rohit. So we have two standard packages here. So first is just only a profile building package, and then we have another one which also includes GPA boosters and and then we'll have a dedicated in-house counselor. Dedicated counselor who takes who guides the student end to end. At every step of the program. Right, profile building sessions. So we initially take 4 hours of tests, where 1 hour would be on personality assessment, where we conduct this test and then we give a 15-pager complete report. On what are the best fit career options, and it would have a completely comprehensive report that would be shared. And then after that, we'll do a 1.5 hour diagnostic test for related to the GPAs and the school subjects, and then another 1.5 hour related to the test preps. Right, we'll take it's based on the student's grade. We'll be taking either a PSAT level diagnostic test or a SAT level diagnostic test, and so there will be 4 hours of tests. And based on this, and then we take all the inputs. There will be a certain form that would be filled where we get an understanding of your profile, and then the first session would be scheduled with counselors like Lindsay, and where there would be complete profile assessment and diagnosis that would be done. And then we'll also take your current interests. So what are the different talents that you already have, and what are you working on, various activities and all. And the second discussion would be based on all these inputs, and the inputs from the first session, and input from the personality assessment, input from the diagnostic test and all. The second session would be completely on the profile building strategy. So as to differentiate your profile entirely, and what are the key aspects that you need to be looking at, and at each level. Let's say that if you're in grade 8, grade 9, grade 10, how this would be, and they will give a certain vision on how this particular activity will transform in the next 2-3 years. And so that would be the complete strategy discussion. And then third would be a roadmap activities plan, where it would be much more executable and actionable plan, and with certain timelines as well. Let's say that for the next 3 months, these are the certain activities that you can look at, and the next 3 months, these are the ones, and then during the summer, these are the things that you need to look at. So there will be complete roadmap for the next 2-3 years with certain milestones and the timelines that would be completely actionable. And then there would be one review session after 4 months on how exactly is it going based on the roadmap, and if there are any updations or any things that need to be modified in the roadmap, that would be taken up. Now this is a profile building package, whereas now adding to that, we also give GPA boosters where there will be tutoring sessions, and then these tutoring sessions, and also there is a dedicated in-house counselor where who will help giving the inputs to the tutors, what exactly topics need to be taught, and there will be a learning plan that would be created so that each of these 40 sessions in this GPA boosters will be highly effective and efficient, highly targeting on the improvement areas of the student, and to the objective for us would be to give a highly engaging and enjoyable sessions, as well as give the best learning outcomes possible, while the student spends very less number of hours, and we value our students time quite a lot. And along with that, we will give access to our one other product, which is Turito Academy. Turito Academy, it will have a, monthly there would be some 100 live sessions that would be going on in that, in that product, and then student will have access to tons of study material and different content that would be available for the student, and then they can access it at any point of the time. So so that not only for this 40 sessions, right? So even if they want to consume knowledge or consume content, they'll be able to use it through this Turito Academy. And obviously, like I mentioned, the dedicated counselor will be there at every step, and then they would be doing every fortnightly discussion or regular discussions, and in sync with the tutor, and then they would be guiding and ensuring that this learning outcomes will be delivered. Our objective is to give a roadmap plan, and then roadmap execution is also our responsibility. So that is what we will be doing it with our dedicated in-house counselor. And now these GPA boosters can also be like, it can be swapped with, let's say, group classes of test prep. It can be, so there are other different variations which can be opted. So Rohit, can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So yeah, we have both Indian tutors as well as Indian expert tutors as well as native tutors, and so we have a differential pricing for both of this, and then accordingly the credits would be taken up. And for example, there would be 80 credits in the standard package, so which either any, it can be either Indian expert tutors or a custom group class where it is a test prep batch class, or so it can be offsetted with any of these credits. And for it, additionally, if these 40 sessions are not enough, and if you want to still continue and take more of our services, you can pay the additional, and then you can top up with the additional credits. Yeah, sure. Yeah, so think yeah, so that would be it. Yeah, after you, Lindsay, again, like I think you can continue the Q&A, please.
For sure. I will have to hop off. I do have another call in 3 minutes, so I'll answer questions for 3 more minutes, everyone. I did answer some via chat, or the chat as well, the Q&A, but I'll go and do those as well live, just so I can kind of let everyone know the classes. So one question was, does it need to be voluntary work, or can it be paid internships as well? Paid internships is totally fine if you can find it. It is tougher for high schoolers to get paid internships, just because you don't have any experience yet. If you can get paid, fantastic. It does not need to be, just voluntary. Another question was, my daughter did volunteer work in the hospital, the Red Cross, and also during COVID, which is also fantastic. How to add in all the extracurricular activity. So there's going to be a couple different ways. So you're going to have a ton of essays where you're going to write about them. You can talk about your, like in the personal statement, they're going to ask you like to talk about your different qualities that you have. Maybe you're going to talk about how, empathetic and compassionate you are for other people. That's totally fine. Or maybe you want to, you'll also have the activity list too in the Common App, where you can talk about essays there, or the activities there. So you're going to have the opportunity to talk about 10 different activities in the activity list. So there's different ways you can do that for sure. And you'll probably, if you do it in essays, to talk about like kind of the specific story, specific moments. So it's a little bit more personalized, because other kids might have volunteered in hospitals, Red Cross, in the COVID too. So those are different ways we can do it. And then the last one that I didn't cover in the chat, or I covered in the chat, but not out loud, is a remote internship okay? Yep, we're in COVID era. That totally works. So if you do chat, or sorry, if you do remote, if you do in person, ultimately we want to get whatever we can get, and kind of go from there. Okay, I think that's all the questions. Someone else just added the link for the forage. I'm going to be able to get that in the end. I should put that in the presentation for next time. But yeah, that should be able to do. You do have to sign up, but it is free to sign up. Okay, well, everyone, I don't know if anyone else wants to say goodbye or anything, but thanks everyone for bearing with me over the last hour and 15 minutes. It was really great chatting with y'all. But I'll see you guys soon. Bye.
Yeah, thanks, Lindsay. Thanks a lot.